everyone. Welcome again to another CanXida webinar. This webinar is going to be on after successful Candida treatment, why do some people still have persistent symptoms that won't go away? This is common, and I want to just speak to one of the main reasons that this happens and how you can deal with it, and a couple of the obstacles that get in the way for folks in having total resolution of symptoms, and just some considerations for healing. And just again, a little bit about me. My name is Dr. Blake Myers. I'm a naturopathic physician. I've been practicing medicine for a little over 10 years, largely in Washington State in the United States. That's where I hold a medical license and where I've done most of my practice. I'm a graduate school instructor in integrative and functional nutrition, and I'm owner of Chiron Healing Arts, which is a virtual practice now. And I serve people in the US, but also internationally, and I'm an author. I am going to have some slides that I want to share, and I just thought I would do a little bit of a back and forth, start on video, chatting with you, and then I'll show you some slides as well, because I think that it's helpful to see some of these things illustrated or written out, besides me just speaking about it. A couple of the learning objectives here. So again, common symptoms that persist after Candida treatment, and by that I mean successful Candida treatment, that there's not a Candida overgrowth anymore. Why symptoms commonly persist? What are mitochondria, and how do they get damaged by Candida? This is a really important aspect of this topic that I want to cover, and just give you a little bit of an understanding of mitochondria because they do a lot more than folks usually think. And then how do we heal mitochondria? Is a major thing to think about with Candida overgrowth. Common symptoms that persist after Candida treatment. Well, so these are symptoms that are commonly present during Candida overgrowth, and then sometimes they don't all go away, or um, you know, they will usually improve with successful treatment, but some of these can be sticky, and so fatigue and brain fog are two major ones that can happen. Now, if Candida really is an issue, and you have fatigue and brain fog as part of that, which is uh, pretty standard. Um, I would expect those to improve with successful treatment, but they can still stick around and be present for different reasons. Low stamina for exertion, so just kind of getting a little different than fatigue and being tired all the time, might just be your energy is okay for the most part, but in terms of physical exertion and you just can't do as much as you would like still. So maybe going to the grocery store, and by the time you get home, you're just kind of wiped out, or there's different levels of it, but just decreased stamina, mood alterations, depression potentially, irritability, different things like that, just mood swings, or altered mood from what might be normal for a healthy you. Attention issues, trouble focusing, digestive issues that may still persist possibly, and then just other things to consider, maybe muscle pain or soreness, which is called myalgia, and paresthesias like numbness or tingling in the extremities. Just some of the things that you could potentially experience that don't totally resolve. And if this is you, that's experiencing these persistent symptoms, I just want you to know that you are not alone. This is really common, and it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that Candida, as I'll show you, can take a major toll on the body and specifically the mitochondria, which we'll talk about here. So you're not doing anything wrong. It's common, but there are also a couple of common reasons that maybe your recovery is slowed, and I want to tell you how you can increase that and get over if you're having a hurdle with getting all the way well, how you can get there. I'm going to share my screen here just because as I'm saying this, I think it will also be helpful if you see these words on the screen. Okay, so there are many reasons that illness can persist. and we're only going to focus on one of them here today. But kind of four major categories that I think of are endotoxins and intestinal permeability, which is also known as leaky gut, nutrient deficiencies, and immune system alterations from the Candida, creating an imbalance in the immune system, and then that imbalance not really coming all the way back to balance yet after the Candida is no longer an issue. Excuse me. Importantly, there can be multiple contributors to chronic illness. So there's rarely ever in a chronic illness situation, there's rarely ever one reason why it's there. It would be great if it was always that way because it would be a lot simpler, right? It would be like address this and boom, you're all better. But there's usually a number of variables going on at one time that make the system susceptible to chronic illness or symptoms such as fatigue and brain fog, right? Uh, and there was probably some susceptibility to getting candida in the overgrowth in the first place. So usually I would say candida is probably a component, perhaps a major component, but it's usually, one component, and there might be a few other things to consider and look for. So that's one thing to remember is that maybe you addressed candida well and you're still having these symptoms. Maybe there's something else going on, like autoimmunity is not uncommon, food sensitivities or true allergies or food intolerances. These can be present, and once they get addressed, then the symptoms that were left over were kind of because of that. That's not an uncommon thing, and which is why I recommend at some point in candida treatment, usually an elimination rechallenged sort of diet of some sort to just check for this. And bacterial dysbiosis, candida overgrowth is just a dysbiosis of fungi, but it also goes along with bacterial dysbiosis. And so maybe the candida's not an issue now, but there's a bacterial dysbiosis. And so that can create symptoms that keep going on. What I want to focus on is this topic of endotoxins. Endotoxins, endo meaning like coming from within, versus exotoxins would be like outside. So endotoxins are natural products that organisms make from their metabolism. Humans make endotoxins as part of our metabolism, that things that if they're not metabolized appropriately, they can be toxic to us. They can be damaging. So they have to be metabolized appropriately and broken down appropriately and eliminated, right? So that's just our own bodies, but any organism creates these types of things. And so Candida produces endotoxins, and particularly some things that are toxic to humans. And these are a lot of the reasons that we can feel really crummy when we have a Candida overgrowth. And really, out of this endotoxin, so there are many that Candida produce, but I just want to focus on one because it's a really big deal. And it'll make sense, I think, here in a few minutes why just this one endotoxin um, can create symptoms that persist beyond when the candida is not there anymore or not an issue anymore. And this is acid aldehyde, as I said, acid or acetaldehyde. What is acetaldehyde? Well, it's something that most of us are actually pretty familiar with. It is an intermediate product of ethanol breakdown, ethanol being alcohol, like alcohol that we would imbibe. Alcohol has a two-step rather process to be broken down. So on the left here, you'll see ethanol. This is like alcohol that you get from fermentation that's in beer or wine, right? And there's an enzyme, alcohol dehydrogenase. This enzyme breaks ethanol down to acetaldehyde. And then there's this other enzyme, uh, aldehyde dehydrogenase, that breaks acetaldehyde down to acetic acid. And one concept in metabolism and toxicology that's important to know, whether you're talking about this or you're talking about supporting your body's detoxification processes at all, like through liver detox, is this idea of the intermediate product. Here, it's this acetaldehyde. It's this middle product in the breakdown. And a lot of times, these intermediate products are more toxic than the original thing. And can cause a lot of damage if they don't complete the cycle, if you will. So acetic acid is like no big deal. Like our bodies can just deal with it and eliminate it. Ethanol, well, it can be pretty toxic, but actually this intermediate in the breakdown of getting it broken down to acetic acid, acetaldehyde is really toxic to human cells. And so this is one of the reasons that Candida can make us feel really crummy. This is a neurotoxin and it's a mitochondrial poison. And that is kind of where I want to focus today. Now, the main thing I want to talk about is that Candida can make this acetaldehyde. They actually can make ethanol as well, the same as the ethanol that's in alcohol that we might drink. And this probably doesn't come as a surprise if you consider that they're fungi related to yeast that we use to ferment to make beer and wine. So not only can Candida make ethanol, but they have the enzymes, the same enzymes that humans do to break down that ethanol in the process that I just showed you and make this acetaldehyde. And this acetaldehyde, as I already mentioned, is toxic to mitochondria and causes a lot of reactive oxygen species or oxidative stress. And the main thing to know about that is that when mitochondria get damaged, they're very susceptible to damage for one thing, but once they get damaged, the processes that the body uses to naturally, adapt to that stress and mitigate further damage, those can get depleted. So the nutrients required for that is one big thing to consider, that mitochondria can just be dysfunctioning because the antioxidant status has gotten depleted in the body, and the process that the mitochondria uses to make energy isn't functioning well. So even after the main problem is gone, the main toxin is gone, the mitochondria can still remain damaged and have a hard time overcoming that. So let's talk about mitochondria for a second. Mitochondria are in every cell in the body except for red blood cells, but besides red blood cells, because they're sort of unique, every single cell in the body, many mitochondria, thousands, or even depending on hundreds of thousands, depending on the sort of the cell that it is and how much energy it needs, there can be hundreds of thousands of mitochondria. So mitochondria, first and foremost, are the energy producing structures inside cells. So whether it's glucose, which is the final breakdown product of sugars and carbohydrates, whether it's sugar, glucose, or it's fats, those all get taken through the mitochondria and turned into energy in the form of ATP is what it's called. So that's the first most important thing to know about mitochondria, but there's lots of other things that they are doing that people tend to not think about. Mitochondria also produce proteins and fats and DNA and steroid hormones and neurotransmitters, okay, all these things. And mind you, again, so this is not a cell. This is a little tiny organelle inside of a cell. This is one aspect of a cell, but it's making all these things. Mitochondria are required for appropriate communication between cells. And when there's a stressor to the body and to a cell, mitochondria are one of the main things that adapts appropriately to that stress. So if it's the stress of exercise, mitochondria have to adapt appropriately. If there's oxidative stress, mitochondria have to adapt appropriately, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of other things they're doing. They also help regulate the circadian rhythm. So your sleep-wake cycle, right? Usually we'll think about melatonin. It's not only about melatonin. There are genes called clock genes that mitochondria help regulate. So that's really interesting to consider, right? Because the thing with mitochondria is when they get damaged, and if it's been, so they're very susceptible to damage, I guess is the first thing I should say, like oxidative stress and toxins like acetaldehyde. They're very susceptible to that. But the longer that that goes on, the the body's systems for adapting to that damage and repairing that damage, those systems can become depleted. And so what can happen is the mitochondria can get damaged from something, a toxin, uh, and oxidative stress. And even when that toxin is removed, if the mitochondria are damaged bad enough and the systems to fix that are depleted enough or not working or being stimulated, etc., then the mitochondria are still damaged. They're still not working appropriately, right? So what happens when your mitochondria aren't working appropriately? You don't have enough energy. Your cells don't have enough energy. So um, of course, you have overall sense of fatigue and maybe low stamina for exertion, but also your brain is the largest user of energy in your entire body. So your cognitive processes tend to not work well. Brain fog, trouble focusing, all of those sorts of symptoms, uh, various neurologic type symptoms because of not enough energy. But sleep can be really thrown off as well, right? So if you're struggling with some of those issues and then sleep issues as well in terms of insomnia or an altered sleep-wake cycle in some way, sleep disturbances, that's another thing to reason to consider mitochondria. So that being the case, let's talk about uh, how do we help them repair? Because presumably the major stressor is no longer there, right? We kind of removed that. But if symptoms are persisting and it's because of this, then we need to support the mitochondria to, we need to build new healthy mitochondria, and we need to help the ones that are there to heal however possible. I'll share my screen with you again here. Kind of the 1, 2, 3, 4 of healing mitochondria. The main things that I want you to think about are that we need to give the mitochondria what they need to function, just like what they normally, use nutritionally to function. We need to become an antioxidant powerhouse in our bodies. We need to make sure that all antioxidant systems are functioning on overdrive, okay? So that's a really big piece that doesn't always happen strong enough or for long enough with Candida treatments. We want to make sure that our body is detoxing adequately because as I was saying, mitochondria are very susceptible to all kinds of toxins. And so it's really helpful to just make sure that your body is detoxing and eliminating appropriately to take any burden off of them. And then we want to build new and healthy mitochondria. And that's kind of an awesome thing about this, and an optimistic thing, if you will, about this topic is we can build new mitochondria fairly easily, actually, and we can make sure that those new mitochondria are healthy ones. I just put these nutrients on here just to kind of give you an idea about some of the basic nutrients that we think of with mitochondria. The kind of the whole host of B vitamins, iron, magnesium, and CoQ10. Those are some of the main nutrients that are used in a lot of different places in mitochondria to get to the energy production that I was talking about. It's a very kind of complex multi-step process to turn glucose or fatty acids into energy. But these are used in a lot of those places. And then the other thing is antioxidant essentials. There's a lot of oxidative stress that happens naturally in mitochondria and also kind of unnaturally from toxins and things. And so uh, they have a high antioxidant need, and these are some of the main ones that I think about, and I just wanted to put them here for you. The minerals here are manganese, not magnesium, manganese, selenium, zinc, and copper are major antioxidants and minerals in the body, aside from the other two there. So before going into those specific nutrients and what you need to do with those to help mitochondria heal, diet has to be the number one thing. So if you did the MEVI diet and then kind of went into an anti-inflammatory diet and then started slacking off from that a little bit, let's say, it's really important that you rein that back in. You need to focus on the healthy diet that you hopefully got yourself on during Candida treatment. Whole foods, Nutrient density and variety. And I mean variety in both protein sources and in plant sources. So, you've probably heard the idea of eat the rainbow of plants. This is great. I also throw in, besides the variety in color, the variety in plant parts. Okay. Meaning leaves and foliage, uh, stem and root, okay? Or things that are, maybe another way you can think of it is above ground and underground. So that helps you think, okay, I need to be eating like greens. Maybe I get radishes and I eat the radish and I saute the greens. I need to get things under the ground like carrots and beets and rutabagas and turnips. I need to maybe have some celery. That's like a stem, right? It's a way to just remember to get a variety there, but protein sources as well. Legumes are great, especially if you do well with them. And if you don't think that your digestive system does well with them, I encourage you to soak them for a very long time, maybe longer than you think you need to, at least 24 hours sometimes, depending on the legumes. So, and soak grains as well. It will help their digestibility. But there's a lot of fiber there. There's a lot of other nutrient sources there. So besides animal proteins, which are a great complete protein source, think about plant sources of protein as well. And soy is a fairly readily accessible one, such as tofu or tempeh. And soy is actually quite healthy for you. So I recommend that, once a week at least for folks. And important for mitochondria, you want to avoid excess calorie intake. I'm not going to put an exact number on this, but most of us know if we're eating more calories on a regular basis than we need to be. But the mitochondria respond to this uh, excess calorie intake in a way that uh, it will slow down energy production, and it'll cause us to start to put on weight, not because there's more calories than what can be burned, but through other mechanisms. So that's really important to just remember. Not It's basically like not overloading the mitochondria with too many calories, nutrients at once. Okay, and I'll touch on this again with some dietary recommendations later. But the first thing that I think uh, often happens is that folks get focused on the candida during treatment, and focus on uh, they don't focus on like the areas that can get damaged, like mitochondria from candida overgrowth, and they don't focus on nutrient repletion and potential nutrient deficiencies and the oxidative stress. So if you didn't take a multivitamin, if you didn't take, the CanXida's rebuild formula during treatment, or you took it for maybe a month or maybe only 2 months, I think the first thing that you should do is uh, get back on the rebuild formula and stay on it for, at least a few months, because you really have to saturate the system with nutrients to overcome the level of oxidative stress that the body is dealing with when it comes to mitochondrial damage. Uh, Diet is always our number one focus, but the level of nutrients that you can get through your diet uh, is so much less than through supplementing that as well with something like Formula Rebuild, that it's not like you can't get there with diet, but it'll be a way slower process and take a lot longer. And it can be a pretty big hurdle to overcome to only do it with diet if things kind of unraveled, if you will, and got to a certain point. So saturating the system is really important. And Rebuild has the main antioxidants that I mentioned that you want: vitamin C, E, selenium, zinc, manganese. But it's also got all these B vitamins that are important for mitochondria to run, a little bit of iron. So it's a really great formula with the kind of doses that you need to start to get over that hurdle. So I would say, that's the first th place to think, is like, maybe I didn't focus enough on the nutrient aspect and nutrient repletion during treatment. And that in itself might go a long way. Now, if you did that for a while, the next thing that I probably would say is stick with it. Like just like Candida treatments, like with formula remove, have to be longer than folks often think. It's the same thing with nutrient repletion. A lot of times it's just that people didn't do some of these things long enough. So maybe you were on a multivitamin, just not long enough. Uh, I usually will recommend people, let's get something in there that's whereas the formula rebuild is really, as it's saying, to rebuild some of these systems and these nutrients in the body. The recharge formula is a little bit more of a maintenance formula. And this is nice because it's got glutamine and glycine, which you need to build glutathione, which is one of the main antioxidants that your body makes on its own. But you still get the B vitamins and some of these antioxidants that your body needs to kind of maintain antioxidant balance, and mitochondrial health. So usually what I would recommend is, as a general template with Candida treatment is do the recharge with the other Candida treatments or I'm sorry, the rebuild for a few months, like 3 months, and then switch to recharge for another 3 to 6 months. Um, a lot of times I will take recharge, um, as kind of a meal replacement or a snack because there's a decent amount of protein in it. If I recall, like 16 to 18 grams of protein. So I might do it in the morning in a smoothie, and add some other things in there. Like I'll add in greens and I'll put some blueberries in there and I'm fortifying it with some other plants. And, you can have a sweet potato that's cooked and put it in there. It's really good that way. So you can get extra fiber with it, but you're getting a nice protein and nutrient boost with it. And the other thing is the vitamin C3K plus uh, is a really nice addition to the recharge, and you can do them both together. A lot of times, I forget to do personally to like drink it every day, but I love the taste of it, so I will just at least try to have it on hand to use it as you know uh, like a water flavor enhancer as I go and reminding myself like, oh yeah, this has also got a lot of vitamin C in it, and it's got vitamin E, which is not in the recharge. And so we're just sort of supplementing that, and it's a nice thing to have around. And vitamin C and E are just so crucial together for the body's antioxidant systems. They work together. Vitamin C and E will each get sort of used up, for lack of a better term. They'll get used up, and to get recycled to be able to be used again, they use each other. So vitamin C gets used up, vitamin E like recharges it. And when vitamin E gets used, vitamin C recharges it. So they're really important to have together, and they will protect the lipids in uh, in the membranes of your cells and in the mitochondria. So mitochondria are just like your cells. Your cells are made of fat, of a lipid bilayer. And your mitochondria are also made of membranes, two membranes, and they're made of the same lipid bilayer. And fats are one of the main things that can get damaged, especially early on with oxidative stress. So the cell wall of your cells can get damaged, but the fats in mitochondria can get damaged as well. And when the membrane doesn't work in mitochondria, the mitochondria doesn't work. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because vitamin E is one of the primary nutrients to protect the 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 cell membrane and the mitochondrial membrane from oxidative damage. It's called lipid peroxidation. So vitamin E is really important, but you need vitamin C along with it. So I like to add the C3K plus in there because it's got this high dose of vitamin C and it's got E, and it will uh, complement the recharge well. One of the other things I had listed is bodily detoxification. Recharge also comes in here. It's really helpful for supporting body detox because it has a lot of the nutrients that your liver uses to do its processes of detoxification, of phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification. it has to use B vitamins and many other nutrients that are in recharge. And also that antioxidant glutathione that I talked about, recharge is, glutathione is used for the detoxification process as well. So you're getting a nice boost in the nutrients that your body has to use to build glutathione. So uh, beyond supporting the things that mitochondria need to function appropriately, beyond supporting antioxidant systems, recharge also supports normal bodily detoxification. So just another reason that I really like to put it in after we saturate the system with nutrients from formula rebuild. I like to put in recharge for a while, and it tastes really good. So it's like it's a nice thing to add in daily, and it's easy to do. The other thing with detoxification is I want to make sure you're getting enough fiber. Folks do not get enough fiber in, like the United States, United Kingdom. It varies for some other countries, but kind of westernized, if you will, countries, for lack of a better term, uh, typically don't get enough fiber. So 30 to 50 grams a day. Most of us are probably not getting 50 grams, but working up to that, I think, is a great challenge for each of us because fiber is one of the most important nutrients that often gets overlooked. It's the primary food for healthy gut bacteria, so that will help to feed your healthy gut bacteria, help prevent candida recurrence, and it's also needed for when your body detoxes things. Many of them go into the gut to get eliminated through the stool, but you need fiber to bind those up to so that they actually get eliminated. Otherwise, your intestines will reabsorb them. So you need enough fiber for detoxification. So um, it's nice because these things are fairly simple. It's just that we're not always doing them. So just having awareness of this, we can start to do these, and you will notice a big difference pretty quickly with a lot of these interventions. So getting enough fiber and sweating regularly, excuse me, is another thing that many people aren't doing on a regular basis, but I try to get my patients doing this as much as possible because um, you can detoxify the majority of things in your body that would go through your liver and urinate out or through stool. They'll come out in sweat. You can sweat out heavy metals. You can sweat out foreign antigens. So, like if you're getting sick with the flu or something, you can sweat, and those foreign antigens will come out. There's lots of amazing benefits to sweating beyond detox, but for this purpose, it's really great for detox because you're taking the burden off of your liver, basically, which has to do most of the heavy lifting for detoxification. Sweating on a regular basis is an easy way to improve your body's detox processes and help support mitochondria. So 20 minutes 3 times a week is maybe a good place to go. Sweating through exercise is fine. It's great. It's probably the best actually, but I also often recommend people use a sauna. So if you can get in a sauna and start out with 10 minutes of sweating and work your way up to 20 minutes and a few times a week, it's a great adjunct to the other things I'm mentioning. And you need to make sure you're staying hydrated. Most of us are also not hydrated enough. So there's no exact amount of water that someone is supposed to drink in a day, but and it can vary depending on person and geography and etc. But in general, you might think of like 1 to 1.5 ounces per kilogram of body weight. So for 100 and I have to do the math here in my head, 150-pound person, and say that that's, what is that, like 75 kilograms, something like that. 75 ounces of water. Okay. I mean, that's just a general idea, but you need to stay hydrated and a lot. This is like another really simple thing that counseling patients on so much, but people don't drink enough water for a lot of different reasons. There's many different reasons, but um, start to work on that. And if you're one of those people that like sort of gets bored with water, which is something that I have plenty of people tell me, that's when the vitamin C3K plus is also really helpful. You're getting those important antioxidants, but it tastes really good, and so you could even split it, and have for a couple of different drinks in the day. And I'm gonna have a summary at the end here because I know I'm going through a lot of things, but I want to get through these main ideas and plant the seeds of them, and then give you the summary. And you just start where you start. You don't have to do everything all at once. That's not even recommended. But um, I would say starting with the nutrient aspects, and then the diet and the nutrient aspects, and then getting to some of these with the detox. And this slide is where I'd recommend going next. Building new mitochondria is actually pretty easy. One of the ways that is the easiest is to start building muscle. So anything you can do to start building muscle, it doesn't have to be like you don't have to like be lifting crazy weights and bodybuilding and stuff, Even just using your own body weight for various things, even like doing a little bit of a wall squat or whatever, something that makes your muscles work, like that is a stressor, a healthy stressor to your muscles, that stimulates a lot of important aspects of mitochondrial health and helps them to heal, but also helps to build muscle. And when you build muscle, you have to build more mitochondria because muscle requires mitochondria. Um, so that's a relatively straightforward way to start building mitochondria. But also, as you are working on building muscle, you're also getting a lot of turnover of of old mitochondria. They go through mitophagy, which is like a normal healthy death of the mitochondria, so that new healthy ones can come in. So building muscle, and notice I'm not saying like exercise in general. I'm being specific to anything that like gets your muscles working. Not, I'm not talking about cardio exercise per se. Not that that's bad, but specifically for this, working on building muscle. So body weight is great. Exercise bands are another one that are easy to have in a small space. Like I live in a small home that's basically kind of like an apartment, and I have a kettlebell that I don't do kettlebell stuff with as much, but it's 15 pounds, but I do some little lifting things with it. And I have bands because you can go from really light to really heavy with bands, and they don't take up much space. So ideas like that to start, any movement is beneficial, and that's kind of the next one there, avoiding stasis. Um, it's really mitochondria start to dysfunction when we're sedentary. So even just standing, I work at my computer a lot most of the day. I'm doing my best to stand up and walk around often, take a break, go for a walk around the block, stand while I'm working. That makes a huge difference. Just standing and walking more. So it doesn't have to be these massive changes. And if you're feeling fatigued and having low stamina for exertion, you probably aren't going to be able to you don't need to be doing a ton of exercise anyways. You just need to start to do a little bit more with some of these other things, and you'll start to see improvement in your ability to do more and more as the mitochondria turn over and heal. Intermittent fasting, this is a really great one. It's really cool. This kind of goes in line with the avoiding excess calorie intake. Intermittent fasting, if you're not familiar with it, is it's not decreasing the amount of calories you're eating, actually. That's one misconception that people have. Uh, it is simply, you basically can think of it as eating the same amount of calories in a smaller number of hours in the day. A common time frame that people will work at is a 16-8, which means that you don't eat for 16 hours out of the 24 hours, and you eat all of your calories that you normally would eat within the 8 hours. There are different impacts of this. Now, one thing that does often happen is people oftentimes do eat a little bit less calories than they normally would, just because it's in a smaller time frame. You don't necessarily feel hungry as much in that 8 hours as you would if you were eating for a 12 or a 14-hour time frame. But for this topic specifically, intermittent fasting helps stimulate mitophagy, which is that healthy death of old mitochondria so that new healthy mitochondria can come in. Intermittent fasting is a great thing to incorporate. I just would say, again, these are a lot of things that I'm throwing out here. Start small if it feels overwhelming to hear and think about all this. Start with getting your diet in a good place, and start with, the formula rebuild, or if you would prefer, like the recharge formula, but staying with those for a long enough time. It needs to be more than a month. You just need to saturate your body with these for long enough so that these nutrients that your body uses to function naturally, that are part of the innate healing processes of your body, that those are around long enough for the body to actually do the healing. Okay, that's kind of the main thing that I wanted to drive home about that. And then as it feels doable, you start to add in these other things like, okay, am I getting enough fiber? Maybe I can up my fiber. I can start eating more plants, or I can start adding some plants to my smoothie with my recharge, thinking about that. Okay, what else can I do now? I've been doing that for a couple weeks. Oh, I might try this intermittent fasting thing. You just do, one thing at a time, whatever's sustainable. If it's not sustainable, there's no point in doing it because you won't be successful in the long term, right? Because you weren't able to stick with it. So I would rather, see you do one or two things on here well than try to do five or six of them and just not be able to stick with any of them for long enough. The last thing is to get adequate sleep. Obviously, if you're having various sleep disturbance this can be difficult, but figuring out ways that you can get adequate sleep if possible is really important. There are some, uh, you know, great herbal medicines that are supportive. A lot of times I will actually use adaptogen herbs with folks as one of the first things I'll try. Adaptogen herbs help to help the body's stress response, and they often can help sleep. So some common ones of these are Eleutherococcus, which is Siberian ginseng, or ashwagandha. Folks are very familiar with usually. Holy basil is another one. In addition to those, a lot of times I'll make a formula for people that might be one or two adaptogens, and then herbs that are calming to the nervous system, like passion flower is wonderful, skullcap, um, California poppy. These are some of the ones that I'm most familiar with. So, herbs can be wonderful. Sometimes melatonin can work really well for folks. Sleep hygiene, but just not forgetting to put a focus on sleep because that's important. That's required for mitochondrial turnover, as well as basically everything else, right? Like we all have experienced not having enough sleep and how it really can mess with us and our brain function, and et cetera. So, this is the summary slide. Uh, if it's helpful for you, maybe, take a screenshot of this. Um, this is everything I mentioned. I just wanted to get it in one place for you to be able to see it and think about what's doable for me. Where can I start? Where do I want to go? But where can I start right now? And then when will I decide that I'm successful with implementing that step? And then what's the next step that I'll go to after that? And so on. Just slow and steady. It's like the tortoise and the hare story. The slow and steady wins the race. That's usually the case. So we don't have to be in a hurry, but figure out where you can start here and just move your way through it. And I think that, really within a few months, you should notice uh, um, clear differences in like brain fog and energy and these other symptoms if they're related to mitochondria. It takes a little bit of time, but if you start implementing these within a few months, you should notice drastic improvements, really. And if it's not drastically improving, then there's maybe something else that just needs to be looked into. So see a healthcare professional, right? And get some tests done or something and see what else might be going on. And I really appreciate having you all here, listening to this content. And if you have other ideas of things that you want to hear about, I will happily do webinar presentations on those things. You can email us on the contact page on CanXida's website. Let us know what you think about this below. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. We put out lots of awesome content on this YouTube page. So until next time, be well, everybody. Take care and Happy New Year.